And now we will move on to the next session, which is panel 9, Redefining Global Disability Inclusion, Lessons from South-South Cooperation, Cross-Regional Learning from Latin America, Africa, and Asia, Shaping Inclusive Development. Moderator is Anya. And Anya, may I invite you to the stage, please? Please give a big hand to Anya. Along with Anya, we have Mayur Shetty. He's CEO of Black Frog Technologies. Mayur leads Blackfrog, a Manipal-based medtech company transforming last-mile immunization. Under his leadership, Black Frog patented cold chain innovations have supported the safe delivery of more than 2 lakh vaccine doses. That's huge across 14 plus Indian states. With expansion now underway in emerging markets across Africa, he's an engineer and a Cambridge Fellow. He's currently building an end-to-end vaccine traceability system and digital platform aimed at strengthening immunization efficiently globally. It's excellent work that you're doing, I must say. We also have Nandita Sharma from Open Network for Digital Commerce. With over 14 years of experience in the development sector, Nandita leads the social sector vertical at ONDC, where she designs programs, builds partnerships, and mobilizes funding. She shapes strategy to strengthen the social impact ecosystem on digital commerce. Her work focuses on handicraft, handloom, and food processing, enabling artisans, weavers, farmers, and other primary producers to access markets with dignity and scale. And she works closely with the government, multilaterals, banks, NGOs. She's everywhere. Please give her a big hand. We also have Rachit Pandey. He is Director Consultant Bayberry Incorporation. He is the recipient of 2025 Anchor Rising Star Mid-Career Impact Award. Rachit leads strategic initiatives at Bayberry, spanning community engagement, global partnership, advocacy, and curriculum design. His journey from a high school dropout to an international disability inclusion leader informs his work with deep empathy and systems thinking. He holds a master's in political science and a diploma in education from PYSSUM. Welcome. We have Dorothy Sharma, Director Inclusive Development and Engagement, Keystone Human Services International. Dorothy brings 16 years of global policy and program experience across UN governments and bilateral agencies. She has led CRPD aligned inclusive development projects in South Asia and Africa and served as organizing partner for the stakeholder group of persons with disabilities, ensuring disability inclusion in major UN political declarations, including the SDG Summit and the Summit of the Future. At Keystone, she guides global programs on community inclusion and deinstitutionalization. She holds advanced degrees in communication, journalism, and public policy from Tezpur University and the University of Maryland. Welcome, welcome to all of you. Over to you, Anya. We are looking forward to an excellent discussion.
Thank you, Sangeeta. And also, please a big round of applause for Sangeeta for guiding us through these 2 days. Thank you, Sangeeta. Yes, it's the last panel, day 2 of the conference. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for all the speakers for being here. I'm Anya Günther, as I've been on the stage yesterday, but also today. I'm the Program and Strategic Partnerships Manager at the Zero Project. I lead our international conferences, such as the one here. And in this capacity, I'm very happy to moderate the last panel of the day and have these wonderful, beautiful speakers with me. Actually, it's quite nice how they've been seated, because on my left, we have 2 individuals, Dorothy and Rachit, who are already quite close to the Zero Project. Dorothy, I think you have been way longer than I have been. Rachit, I met you in Singapore earlier this year, so already very connected to the Zero Project. On my right side, I have 2 quite new organizations to the Zero Project, which is Mayur and Nandita. Thank you also for being part of this panel, and not yet a part of the network, but from now on. So welcome to the Zero Project family. For anyone who can't see me, I am a white woman. I have blonde open hair. I have a white shirt, black trousers, and my signature sneakers, because I'm running around a lot. And we've heard a lot about innovations. We've seen different topics from disaster risk reduction, media, scaling to other countries. And one thing that we haven't talked about yet is how do we actually fund this? How do we fund innovations in disability inclusion? And you need to be mindful because I went a little bit rookie with my panelists. They were expecting something slightly different, but I think they're all experts in their fields who are flexible enough to go with my rookie plans. So thank you for that. Um, yes, because we want to make sure, due to COVID, due to cuts in US aid funding and other development agencies who have cut back funding, we need to ensure that disability inclusion is actually still being funded. So, how do we diversify our funds? What can we do? Um, I talked about that we're the Zero Project. So, one of our core processes is sharing and finding solutions for persons with disabilities. And before I come to our great panelists, I would like to share one example. So, Thai Tanzania is a organization led by youth in Tanzania that create educational content that is digital on platforms for persons with disabilities. They're not only funded by grants, but they also have diversified their funding model by also being funded through the clicks that they have. So they have over 1 million viewers and therefore generate another income stream, diversifying on how their organization is set. This is just one of many examples. And here on the panel, as I mentioned before, we have further examples from different sectors. So I'll start with Rashid. Rashid is more in the civil society sector. You have many, many activities that you're doing. Bayberries being one. You used to be part of Keystone Human International, but also you support organizations in finding models for self-financing. Then we have Nandita, a representative from the rather public sector in India. You work at the Open Network for Digital Commerce, emphasis on network, and you support individuals to bridge the gap, the digital gap, to enter into e-commerce, to use this as a platform, to also be able to sell your products. Then we have Mayur. You're an example at Black Frog for how you can make a business case for the disability inclusion sector, because you have found a way to transport vaccines to rural areas more successfully, and it's actually a business case. And Dorothy, last but not least, you'll paint a bigger picture because you've been involved on UN and advocacy level for 16 plus years. And for you, I would like to ask you at the end to paint a bigger picture and what do we need in general for the disability inclusion ecosystem? How can we sustain funding? That's enough from me. I'll start with Rachit. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. So we had a presentation prepared, which you can see on the screen, but I'm going to go completely off script because our topics have changed. But it's a good topic to talk about. So, hi, my name is Rachit Pandey. I'm 5'9" in terms of height. I'm wearing a beige pant, Indian chappals, brown color, and I'm wearing a shirt which is half sleeves and it has some floral prints here. I never noticed my clothes before until today. um, I want to start off with my privileges that I enjoy in this society. I was born in a Hindu Brahmin family in India, and I am educated to a master's level with other certifications. I am queer. I am neurodivergent. For those who don't understand the term neurodivergent, I come with an invisible disability, which is attention deficit hyperactivity differences, is what I like to call it. Um, I was born in a lower middle class family. However, growing up with hard work, pinch of good luck, I now enjoy the upper middle class income at this moment. Why I'm sharing this is because it's very important to recognize the fact that the privileges that I enjoy brings me here today. However, talking about a lot of people that we know and we serve may not enjoy the same privileges as I do or as you do. And hence, they may not be able to make a way into spaces like these. So, it's very important to talk about accessibility in different shapes and forms, and one of them being financial accessibility. Because without money, it's hard to do what we do, right? I mean, we have to eat food at the end of the day and have a shelter to live in. So, my work, primarily, as Anya mentioned, with Bayberry, is about supported living, where we support people with disabilities to live in their own homes within their own communities. Supported living, for those who don't know about this particular model, is very different from independent living and group home settings and residential settings. Here, we support people to live in their own homes. It can be their family homes or it can be a house that they prefer to live in, rented or owned. I won't get too much into it today, but those of you who want to know more details can connect with me separately. Talking about the financial accessibility part and supporting nonprofit sectors, I started a small pilot project, and that's how this story started, where I have a small hotel that I leased for 5 years. I withdrew some personal money and I received a small grant from one of the CSR funders to show proof of concept. And the profits from this hotel directly goes into a foundation that supports people with disabilities at different levels. What I am trying to put forward as a point here is that we can move away from charitable model by having other avenues and sources of income, and not necessarily the NGO needs to start a business. It can be other people who start a business, who are empowered to start a business, who support different causes at different levels. So what my aim at this point is, and I can't do this alone, so I might add that this will require a lot of people, a lot of efforts, and a lot of replication in the future. And there is no one business to make this model possible because it'll depend on different factors. And I don't have much time to deep dive into each one of them. And whoever is interested, we can talk about this later as well. But I can't start like 2000 hotels to, support 2000 NGOs. But what I can do is through my foundation, I can incubate another person into a social enterprise who can start something which is for profit and support a non-profit of their choice to at least cover their basic operative cost so that they're not worried about their operational cost. And here my time's up, it says. So I'm going to pass it back to Anya. For those who want to know more details, please connect with me separately. I'm also available on LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn is Rachit, Rachita, and Pandey, Pandy. Thank you.
Please connect. Please connect with Ratchet. Can I actually ask you a question? Because you said you have different models, and explaining all of them would be a lot, way too much for this panel. But could you go into one? Because I would be interested into understanding the process.
Sure. So, one of the models that actually aligns with the nonprofit space, I'll go into that. So, we have a small school in Lucknow. It's called Paisum, where I did my diploma in special education. They bought a huge piece of land on the outskirts of the city, and I was consulting with them at that time. And they said, we want to build this huge residential facility where we want to put all people with disabilities together and, run this space. And I was like, you want to do that, move them away from their home, far, far away to an outskirt place with no adequate facility or community inclusion. So I didn't say it like that to them, but I was like, okay, how about we start an agriculture business? Like agricultural income in India specifically, I don't know about other countries, is non-taxable. And NGOs also have non-taxable status. So I said, how about we start a hydroponic organic farm? And for those who may be aware that how expensive after inflation our vegetables are. So growing exotic vegetables, which has a huge market size in our country where people want to eat broccoli and parsley and other vegetables which are not typically grown in our country, sells at a higher price. And hydroponic setup, while it is costly, it can solve a lot of problems where you don't have to be involved in the farm daily. You can automate a lot of stuff. And also our government gives subsidies and grants to start such farms. So there is a win-win from multiple angles. The bank will support you with a loan even for a non-profit. So we started that, and we tried and tested that. It really worked out pretty well for us, but right now we have moved away from that. And what we did was we just planted some mahogany trees. We did a little bit of construction where people can come for a farmhouse retreat, so there's Airbnb income. And mahogany trees have individual value of their own. So in the next 10 years, the land value will increase to a greater percentage because of those trees itself. And having a constructed farmhouse, a lot of people want to buy such places. So that money can be used for something greater and bigger, and maybe sustain the organization for lifetime with that kind of corpus money.
Thank you so much for giving us the insight. I think it paints a better picture of what you're doing and how far you've come already. Thank you. Nandita, we're going to the public sector, and I would like you to share your work and what you're doing at the Open Network for Digital Commerce.
Hello. Hi. Hi, good afternoon. Namaste. I'm Nandita. I'm wearing a beige shirt. I'm 5'6" in height, and I'm wearing black pants and a white pair of sandals. So here I'm going to be talking about setting up e-commerce as a new funding model for disability inclusive NGOs. I work for an organization called Open Network for Digital Commerce. So while this presentation is going to be for 5 minutes, I'm going to try and swim my way through. So can we go to the next slide? I mean, do we have the slide? Oh, okay, great, great. So I think the Open Network for Digital Commerce is a digital public infrastructure. It's a DPI, just like a public infrastructure comprises of roads. This is the digital public infrastructure, which allows for e-commerce inclusion. So if there is a product, if there is a service, if there's credit, everything that is catalogable can come on e-commerce. So just giving you an understanding of what is the ONDC. If people from India, you have used something called as a UPI, which is a Unified Payment Interface. Before that, we were all sort of dependent on platforms. And now with UPI, we don't need to know what banks we are sending the money to, how we are sending it to, are we registering, are we not registering. It has made it so seamless that it is a truly inclusive project in every sense, right? People on the roads who have cards are doing a UPI payment at the get-go. So similarly, this is a DPI, and when we say it's a network of applications, that means that the choices that I have as an organization or as a seller has increased multifold, right? So my choices to onboard an e-commerce have become much more. E-commerce accessibility has become much more easier. There are lower commissions because there is more competitions with these applications. There are more choices for sellers to come on board and for buyers to buy. So in a crux, again, it's not a platform, it is a network. It enables all sorts of digital transactions like any physical goods, any digital goods like booking a cab, taxi, metro ticketing, all of that, and also services like financial services, skilling, employment, so on. And what this entire sort of network does is that it stitches the different value chains. So if I am an NGO that supports people with disability and we make certain products, or we need access to certain verified and authentic products for accessibility, I can just go on board onto the network through any of the applications. There are many applications existing on your phone which are actually ONDC compliant. So it helps you get into it. If I need to access credit while I'm making a product and I'm selling it online, and I need to access say like a micro insurance for the product, I can access it, right? If I need to have training to make something more, I can access the same platform. So this is how the DPI is envisaged. Of course, we're at the initial sort of stages, but we're trying to build it in a way where it just becomes really easy, accessible, and inclusive. And I think just for NGOs who are looking, I mean, we're of course looking, when COVID happened and the whole market had sort of stopped, and we were really relying on e-commerce. So now in these times, how do we, how do we how do we build for sustainable model? So the idea is to, while you can have a donor-funded model, how do you also have like a income-generating market-linked model, right? That's through e-commerce. So there are opportunities. Of course, here we are looking at, the e-commerce opens up home-based livelihood opportunities and scalable market access. So, and how do, NGOs, for example, we have a lot of cases who have also transitioned to opening up social enterprises to be able to do this, as an alternate means of livelihood generation. Um, Here I'm sort of, I think this is, we can of course connect offline for this, but these are some of the models that we've seen throughout the country, how NGOs are adopting e-commerce and how they are sort of building, the entire supply chain for e-commerce. So again, when I say e-commerce, it means products or services, not necessarily products. And so, the way we sort of start off is to figure out, how do we get onboarded? Can we make our own tech? Are we tech capable? And if we do make a tech, do we ensure that it's accessible by design? So do we have screen readers, sign language, voice, and interoperability and so on? So either we make our own tech or we find a technology service provider. All of these information can be found on the official website of ONDC, or we actually onboard as a seller, which is the easiest thing to do, right? We just onboard with the right seller network partner who gives me the right tech for the people that I support. So that's my first sort of step. The rest sort of the steps that come in, right? So there's an organization called Mandeshi Foundation based out of Maharashtra. What they did is that they work with rural women entrepreneurs, and they set up the entire sort of packaging, the digital cataloging facilities, the warehousing, and all of these aspects within the organization. So that really streamlined it, because for every individual to get directly onboarded on e-commerce is probably, it has its own theory of change. So probably not last year, but maybe this year they will come, as individual entrepreneurs. So there was a bit of the building capacities aspect, and then there was the partnership with the entire ecosystem building. So for example, if I'm making organic products, I would need access to certifications. So can my organization facilitate that for me? Or if I'm making an authentic handmade product, do I have the craft mark or the things like that, right? So this is something. There are also multiple buyer applications. So just like the sellers have many avenues to onboard, there are many applications that the buyers can come on board and to buy. What does that do? That basically increases my visibility multifold, of course. And then it also enables me to get the right credibility. So as an unbranded Indian brand, what is my trust credentials, right? So that is also something that I understand that my time is sort of running out, so I'm going to really try. Yeah. So here, the different models that we've seen, the NGOs sort of, the revenue models that are now sort of stemming up have been, are there any value-added services that these NGOs are giving? So the most important thing about, on the seller side for e-commerce is two things. One is technology, the other is operations. NGO, the forte of NGOs will be operations, right? The technology companies would never have the same, on-ground mobilization and the kind of support that any of the beneficiary groups and especially the PWDs would require. So then that could be a partnership that we are seeing. It's like a per transaction partnerships, or it's CSR funded organizations who are actually looking at these NGOs to be able to support e-commerce inclusion as their CSR mandate. There are multiple other partnerships that can sort of come through, and of course the impact matrices could be the number of the revenue generated, the number of orders, the number of the amount that was reinvested into the NGO program, and so on. Of course, this is a very slide heavy, text heavy slide, but I think just to sort of sum it up, the sort of challenges and the action that we've sort of had so far has been, we have made a property called Amazing India to showcase all the social government and impact segment in the country. So the entire unbranded India gets a special visibility with the right kind of trust credentials. The job for us as ONDC is to really look at what are these trust credentials for the people that we're looking at right now. For the PWDs, what are the trust credentials and how can we give them the right visibility on multiple buyer applications? That's number one. And I think in terms of the learning and challenges, we've already discussed about it. But the call to action has been, how can we partner with those tech companies to make the tech products which are actually accessible friendly, to be able to sort of push even the ONDC and e-commerce buyers to be able to sort of support and buy from such sellers. I think that is a very important segment that, to be honest, like as ONDC, while we've worked with the Ministry of Rural Development, the Women and Child Development, Tribal Affairs, to basically look at inclusion from all of these aspects. We are yet to work with the Department of Empowerment of People, persons with disabilities, to look at what are the schemes and programs we can create to be able to get e-commerce penetration there, and I think leveraging AI and assisted tech for cataloging, storytelling, basically every aspect of the e-commerce value chain. So I think that's there from my side. I think we have a few case studies. I don't know if you wanna. These are a few case studies coming from Himachal Pradesh, that similarly how NGOs have really worked together, or government organizations have sort of led a hub and spoke model to be able to give the right kind of branding and aggregation and support to rural women and other sort of marginalized entrepreneurs. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Nandita. How do you reach the individuals and the NGOs to bridge the digital gap that there is? How do you do the outreach to these organizations?
So honestly, with ONDC, there has been a lot of organizations that have actually reached out to us. It's me being on such platforms where I'm able to really talk about, let's connect, let's start building and co-creating this together. However, there's a website where people can just log in and say that, hey, I'm interested to get onboarded, and I'm interested to explore partnerships. Then we sort of co-create, we find the right funders, and it's really like a very community-led approach to basically bringing about. And I'm so glad that I got to be here, because while there are all of these other things that we've been building on for inclusion, I feel that this is the time has come, and I really need to look at PWD as an engagement partner to be to be able to looking at developing the e-commerce ecosystem for this. Yeah.
There's no better time than now. Thank you so much. And we're going from the public sector to the private sector. Mayur.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Anya. Hello, everyone. I'm Mayur Shetty. Just a bit of background to me. I also had very severe childhood ADHD, so I tend to speak a little too fast. If I get carried away, please feel free to interrupt me. I'm an automobile engineer by training. I work in thermodynamics and heat design today. I run a small technology startup company called Black Frog. We are based in a small town called Manipal in coastal Karnataka. Today, I'm here to talk about how private capital, equity investment can be leveraged to do social good. We started our work in 2015, where my co-founder and I were engineers. We are a team of about 53, but then in 2015 we started as three. We wanted to leverage technology to solve sociological problems. Specifically in healthcare, we built a ocular pressure estimator for early detection of glaucoma. We worked on building a mosquito larvicide cake where we could repurpose chicken feather dust, which is a unmitigated poultry waste. So we would work on smaller projects like this. By 2017, we fully transitioned into medical refrigeration. We realized the global health implications of poor vaccine delivery with poor cold chain management. That's something that I'd like to talk to each of you today. Vaccines are considered as one of the frontier weapons we have today in preventing both disabilities, morbidity, and disabilities. And there's a challenge in the way that we carry vaccines today. Vaccines require very strict temperature control between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius, right from the point that they're manufactured up until they're administered. And this becomes tricky because we've had a lot of investment in cargo airplanes, refrigerated trucks, ice lined refrigerators, deep freezers. It's the last mile. That's where the thermal degradation happens. MSF claims that about 73% of the vaccine wastage happens in the last mile when Anganwadi workers or the ASHA workers carry vaccines from primary health centers to the last mile, to the Anganwadi center where the vaccines are administered. And this is primarily because we use these ice boxes, these dabbas, which have been around for about 100 years, where we use ice packs and gel packs in insulated containers. And incidentally, vaccines also happen to be freeze sensitive. So when we say ha tanda hai, it doesn't actually mean that it's in appropriate temperature range. So freezing is a huge problem. ICMR claims that about 65% of vaccines are subjected to suboptimal temperature before they're administered. So this means two things. One, of course, the economic burden of wasted vaccines, but also the larger public health challenge is that we end up administering vaccines that have lost the potency, and you get this false sense of protection against the disease, right? You go out believing that you're covered when in fact you're not. And we realize that this is not just a vaccine problem, it's also a challenge for transporting critical samples like blood, culture, serum, sputum, any biological that needs to go between either a patient and a test facility or a manufacturer till the vaccine recipient. It took us about 8.5 years of rigorous R&D. We were successful in developing the world's first WHO pre-qualified active cold vaccine carrier. Our flagship offering is called Mvolio. Mvolio is a portable and rugged battery-powered system that can maintain a preset temperature for about 35 to 40 hours in the field. It can be configured between -20 to +20 degrees Celsius, so you're able to carry DNA, RNA samples, all of the routinely transported vaccines, WBC, RBC samples as well. It's both AC/DC compliant. You're able to plug it into an existing solar panel or the DRE setup that you have at a health facility. Very proud to say that we've been able to deliver 200,000 doses of vaccines in some of the most rural and hard to reach areas of India. We are live in about 14 states of India today. This is not just carrying vaccines. We also help in transporting organs like corneal tissues. And that's a huge challenge in India because 50% of donated eyes go to waste. In cities like Mumbai, it's close to 75%. And that is crazy because we keep telling people you should donate eyes, you should donate eyes. But then there's a 75% chance that we will end up discarding it because of delay or infection. So this cold chain management is something that is very close to our heart. We don't call it a vaccine carrier for that reason. It's a holistic refrigeration tool. Like for example, I'm from Karnataka and we have about 12,000 cases of snake bite every single year. And if I get bit by a snake, I go to a primary health center, they don't have the appropriate antivenom. Somebody has to go to the local pharmacy, pick up that appropriate antivenom and come back. And you don't have the time to freeze ice packs, condition them and go and do that. So what you need is a plug and play solution. So we position our product as a battery powered solution where you press a button, within 11 minutes, you have a 4 degrees Celsius platform. So you're able to immediately dispatch the health worker, get the appropriate antivenom and get it running. I think the most successful use case for us has been with one particular health facility in Mysore. It's a facility called Swami Vivekananda Youth Memorial Hospital, who do some incredible work in immunizing a local tribal community. There's a community called Jenukuruba tribes who are kind of cut off from civilization. And these guys do an incredible work of delivering vaccines every Thursday, where it takes them about 3 hours to reach the settlement. So by the time earlier, the ice packs would just melt. So they have like a ticking clock where they have to administer whatever is left behind. Now, for about 5.5 years, they've been using our product, and they claim that every single day they've been able to go from 20 to 23 children that they were able to immunize earlier. They've shifted to 55 to 60 kids per day. they are also able to save about 13,000 rupees worth of vaccines every single month, because they're not discarding the unused vaccines at the end of the day. They're able to safely bring it back, refrigerate it, and reuse it. This is something we're scaling across Africa now. With our WHO pre-qualification, we're live in Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, and Fiji Islands right now. We are at the forefront of building a climate resilient health system, because one, of course, vaccines are. COVID has demonstrated that vaccines are the finest tool we have today. Unfortunately, COVID kind of turned the entire public health system upside down. When there's a problem that can affect middle-aged white men, then pregnant women and children kind of take the back seat. That kind of happened in 2021, where 2021 was the worst year in routine immunization. There was a 20-year drop in immunization coverage. That's something we're trying to recover right now. And also, interestingly, in 2024, we finally got a malaria and dengue vaccine that's being rolled out across 12 countries in Africa right now. That's something we're going to be a part of. The product is completely eco-friendly. We don't use any greenhouse gases. There are no noxious refrigerants or coolants, unlike traditional refrigerators. There are no compressors or moving parts. We were able to demonstrate that we are able to offset carbon footprint of about 2.4 kgs with every health facility that we are live in. We are also highly energy efficient. It runs at a meager 24 watts of power, which is probably less than the single light bulb in this room right now. So that's critical in a health facility where you have intermittent power. We keep saying we're 100% electrified. The challenge is erratic power supply. It's not electrification. You lose power, you lose all of the blood bags, the vaccines. Yes, this is my last bit.
I know you're very excited about this topic. It's a very important topic. And just one quick question, and also you can finish your sentence. I'm sorry for that. Who pays for the service?
Yeah, so we work on a B2B2G model where UNICEF is the world's largest buyer of vaccine cold chain equipment. So all of the vaccines in itself and the syringes, needles, refrigerators are typically purchased by UNICEF, UNDP, and they're integrated into the public health systems. Our customers are mostly development agencies, non-profits, NGOs. If there's anybody in the room who is keen to work in public health and specifically maternal and child health, I'd love to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And reach out to Mayur as well. Thank you. And now, Dorothy, you have the great honor and challenge to bring all these solutions who are working with persons directly to a global level. So how, and I know you've prepared a presentation, but also guiding us to how can we ensure that disability inclusive solutions are long-term funded on a global level? How can we create advocacy around it?
Thank you, Anya. Hello, everyone. How are we doing? I'm very acutely aware that I'm the last panelist of the last panel of the whole
You
2
are?
days.
What honors. And how suitable for someone who's been with the Zero Project for so long.
You've been kind, but I'm sure that most of us here are praying that I'm not a big talker. Unfortunately, today is not the day when your prayers will be answered. But I'll try to stick to the how is it 4 minutes? I have 5. Yeah. Yes. As I was introduced, my name is Doro D. I work with an organization called Keystone Human Services International. Keystone is an international organization that operates out of the United States, Moldova, and in India. We have been in the United States for the last more than 50 years, in Moldova for 20 plus years, and in India for now 10 years. The work we do is around community inclusion. So we work with persons, primarily those with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, and support them to move out of congregate care institutions and homes to live independently in the community. So that's the introduction. And it's when we discussed this panel, it was supposed to be slightly different, but I'm going to try and bring some of the discussions together. But before I do that, I think we use the term redefining international cooperation, and I actually wrote the word reimagining, and I'll come to that as to why I use that word in my presentation. And please just keep the cover slide, title slide, because the rest in this slide deck might not be very relevant as to what I'm going to
My
say.
apologies.
No worries, no worries. It's actually good to go off script once in a while, because I think it brings up some really interesting conversations that might not come up in a planned presentation. So we are living in some very unprecedented times in contemporary history, especially when it comes to development funding. There are general shifts in priorities, there are shifts in political priorities, and we are seeing a decrease in official development assistance, which is the funding, bilateral, multilateral funding that usually supports huge projects that build the ecosystem where all of these innovations actually exist. For example, if you look at just last year, OECD, the Organization for Economic and Economic Cooperation and Development, reported that France, Germany, UK, and the United States reduced their ODA funding by significant margin in first time in 30 years. We all know that the United States, USAID, the United States government shut down USAID early this year, which basically led to 60 billion US dollars disappearing from the development space in just like overnight. Germany has reduced its ODA by 1 billion euros this year, and the United Kingdom is reducing its development funding budget by 40%. It'll happen over the next couple of years and complete by 2027. So this is the basic landscape of development funding that we have, the crisis that we're facing today. Additionally, and it's not something that has happened overnight, but in the last couple of years, the trend is that more than 64% of our development assistance actually comes through short-term projects. So there's not enough funding to build transformative shifts and changes in thematic areas and in countries where these interventions are really required. And many of the development funders are moving to from grants to loans. So these are also realities that we need to keep in mind when talking about the changing landscape of development aid funding. So those of us working in the international development space would know that these changes have impacted all of us working across different issues, be it education, health, employment, livelihoods, climate justice, etc. And it has particularly impacted those of us who work with marginalized populations, such as persons with disabilities. And there is a huge risk, and we're already seeing it in many cases, that we are going back on progress that we've already made. So that's a huge risk that we are facing as a collective who work in this space. But also, now since I've given you the gloom and doom of the world, on that cheerful note, I would like to shift gears a little bit to say that while this is all very scary, I think it's also a good moment for us to ask ourselves two questions. First, why were we so dependent on international funding? Why were local interventions in the majority world, for example, so dependent on these kind of bilateral and multilateral fundings? And second, was aid ever equitable and just for everybody? Because we're talking about the disappearing of development aid, but did it ever come to persons with disabilities to begin with? And the answer, I'm sure you all know, is actually no. So we have evidence that shows that between 2012 and 2018, only 0.1% of the aid disbursed by OECD countries, which is like the majority of the donor countries, actually went to, actually included, not went to, included a disability component in whatever shape or form. And in 2022, OECD also reported that of the 11 billion euros that were disbursed by their OECD DAC members, the Development Assistance Committee members, only 1 billion was actually for disability, had a disability component. 1/3 did not have anything on disability. So clearly, even before this crisis happened, aid was never equitable, just, or inclusive for persons with disabilities. So right now, we actually have an opportunity to reimagine, not just redefine, but reimagine international cooperation And we can do that with multiple frameworks that already exist. For example, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which Martin mentioned yesterday and Ambassador mentioned this morning as well, that the CRPD, Article 32 of the CRPD, and India was one of the first countries to have ratified this convention in 2007. So the Article 32 of the CRPD talks about international cooperation and mandates that states who have ratified the CRPD should make international development programs both inclusive of and accessible to persons with disabilities. So we have that. We also have the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, which is basically the financing agreement of the United Nations to support the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Addis Ababa Action Agenda mentions disability and particularly talks of education, decent employment, and education, and I think I already mentioned that, and assistive technology. Recently, we also have this other forum called the Global Disability Summit, which is basically a summit that brings together leaders from both governments, private sectors, other stakeholders at the highest level of office. And in the last GDS, the Global Disability Summit, there was a call that was made 15% for the 15%. So basically 15% of ODA, official development assistance, to the 15% of the population, which is persons with disability. So we have these frameworks. So the answer, what we do in terms of how we convert all of these commitments to not only retain what has worked before in terms of international funding that existed pre, I guess, I don't know, pre 2025 and 24, before we have seen all the shifts, and then also what else what new can be brought in. So I think those are the questions that we should be asking. I have some other points, I think, specific to what organizations, NGOs can do, but I think that'll be the second question, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So
Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you. I spoke very fast, as fast as I could, and I apologize to the interpreters, but I did want to make sure that I presented all the points that I thought of. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you also for the sign language interpreters for the quick movements. Just one in a short sentence. What would your recommendations be? You have a room full of people in the disability inclusive space.
Okay.
What should we be doing? 3 points.
Okay. First is that we need to collaborate, not compete. So we need to find more, partners and allies who work in the same issues and come together. Excuse me. So areas like this, I think Zero Project is doing an amazing job of that. We also need to measure and collect evidence. And excuse me, we need to include local actors, especially persons with disabilities themselves, and also organizations of persons with disabilities in our conversations. And excuse me, it's just sorry. Take a moment. I think the universe is telling me to shut up, so I'm trying to complete. Yeah, so earlier in the day, you saw the graphic facilitation, right? So we at Keystone actually have been doing graphic facilitation for our events and trainings for a long time. And we use them in our person-centered planning. So actually, and when our colleague was presenting, we said, this is how we should come together, bring all of these things together and use this local knowledge to build local solutions and also focus on domestic resource mobilization. The government of any country is the biggest development funder in that sense. So where is the government funding going to? So I think we should all talk about this. We should find, I mean, I've gone over 3 points now, but I hope somebody's taking notes. But we also should look at non-traditional funders. I think those are the points that I would flag for all of us to consider as we move from here. Thank you. So I did not speak over, I suppose, and thank you again for your attention.
Thank you so much for these recommendations. I will add 2 minutes to the panel and just asking, is there any question, one question in the room? Or are we all just looking forward to networking after the closing of the conference? Okay, I think you had wonderful last words. So, yeah, please. Could we get you a mic? No, I think it's also for the captioning.
Hi, I'm Aditi. I'm an architect, and I wanted to ask you the research that you were talking about. Does it also produce, like, give solutions to, like, for example, you're saying the international funders are becoming less. That is what your research says. And does it also, like, do you have solutions to how to, whether we should get them more, how to get them more, or how to tackle that problem? Do you also like go into that part?
Thank you so much for the question. So this is not research that I have done or my organization has done, because this is like from different evidence generated through research done by other entities. So I refer to an OECD publication, for example, and some UN publications. I don't think the development aid and financing scenario is going to change tremendously in terms of how in terms of the direction is moving towards. So we will have continue to have reduced development aid. We are at the United Nations level right now, there is a push to accelerate the implementation of the sustainable development goals. So the Secretary General is talking about SDG stimulus fund, for example, and looking at the private sector to raise the whatever $1 billion is required to implement the SDGs in the remaining 5 years. We're also now looking forward to the post 2030. So SDGs will end in 2030, and post 2030 we have something called the Pact for the Future. And there also you'll find references to domestic resource mobilization, tax reforms, stopping domestic illicit flow of wealth from certain majority world countries. So there's a lot of things happening at the global level in terms of policy. But if you look at local solutions, I think we're looking more and more with consortium sort of funded programs rather than one single NGO program. So more collaborations, more partnerships are likely to get funded. Innovations that can be scaled would be probably funded more. The other issue is that we are really not looking at intersectionality of funding. So funding exists for almost every issue. For example, education, gender rights, climate justice. Climate justice and humanitarian is right now quite a priority for funders. Where is disability in all of these? I think we have to find those entry points, because if we look at for standalone disability segregated projects, other projects that are not part of the mainstream, that might be difficult to do. Right now, I think intersectionality and coming together and finding those entry points in existing funding priorities would be a good way to go. Also holding government funding, trying to mobilize domestic government funding, because like I said, if you're talking about social protection education, the government is the biggest funder for those in those thematic areas. The other would be private sector funding, and I think we've already had conversation on impact investment in the panel before this. So those are the new areas that I think we should look at.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the question. Is it a quick one? It's a comment. That's perfect. Okay, I hand it over to you then.
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much for this panel. I think it was a tough spot to be in, but a really fantastic way to sum up the 2 days. My name is Genevieve Fitzgibbon, but I wanted to comment on this, some of the points that you were making, Dorothy, but the whole of the panel on the ideas that we all have different solutions, but what I'm loving is that Zero Project is giving another solution, which is this coming together. So we all know before this crisis that you were talking about the reduction in this international funding, there was a trend, right, that we were all feeling about localization. And so the statistic that Dorothy, you mentioned about how little actually got to the expertise that is in any particular country to implement the known practices was not very much successful. And the opportunity I hear you saying is that let's recognize that and continue to convert. But to do that, we need to find a way to come together, to leverage each other's strengths, to have this collaboration. And so I just think that this was a fantastic panel to end on, because the whole point of Zero Project giving us the space for this is to not only share what each we're individually doing, but to continue to figure out how to have each other's backs, how to figure out how to share each other's knowledge, and how to amplify each of our space, so that we as allies or OPDs can truly see some of these solutions to their real conclusion, and not only ideas. So sorry, I might not have said that as succinctly or as clearly as I meant it, but hopefully it came across.
Thank you. And I think you perfectly summarized it. So, with these words, thank you so much. Thank you all for these panels for the full 2 days. Thank you to my fellow panelists. And I'm handing over to Sangeeta.
Thank you to all the panelists. It was one of the most, like Genevieve said, a tough spot to be in. However, I would like to congratulate you for giving it in black and white. You have not given any false hopes to any of the bodies, organizations here to think that we will be getting any funding very soon, because it's something which is happening here at an international scale. So I would like to sum it up in one line. I'd say think global, fund local, right? We need to do that now. And we must also hold our government accountable. And please raise our voices. We are all educated, so we must ask the government, stop the freebies and fund what needs to be funded. And that is all these excellent people who are working in the social sector doing work which actually falls in the purview of the government, right? Why isn't the government not supplying, I mean, setting up these cold chains, which an individual, a young guy has done? I mean, that's something to be really proud of. As an Indian, I'm very proud of you. What you're doing is excellent. We actually needed it so badly, because I know of stories. I come from Bihar, and my roots are in the villages. So I know how children are deprived of immunization because of the absence of, first, the vaccinations, and second, because by the time the vaccinations reach the government hospitals, they are already out of date, or like they cannot be given. Like it happens with the rabies vaccine also, right? Expired vaccines because of lack of cold storage. So this was an excellent panel, and I'm going to wrap my head around everything and not take up more of your time.